Welcome to Behind the Whistle, podcast and video cast of elite level referees and members of WWR so that you can get a better understanding of who that person is behind the whistle. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Whistle, where you get to learn the ins and outs of behind our referee members and community members of water polo around the world. Today, we are so lucky. We are joined by a dear friend who personally I haven't seen, but I have seen him perform out on the catwalk. My friend, Frank Ohme. And Frank, introduce yourself and kind of give us the backstory of who is Frank and what brings you to the sport of water polo.
Well, hi, Stephen. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be on the podcast and share a bit of my story with the people out there who are listening and watching. As you say, I'm Frank. I live in Germany now. I'm 39 years old. I have two little kids, 6 and 9 years old. And, where do I start?
Well, let's start here. You didn't begin in Germany. Would that be accurate?
No. I grew up in Germany.
Okay.
And my job, I studied physics, and then after that, in this sort of academic field, you're sort of used to or expected to move around places a lot, including other countries.
Of course.
So then, when I did my first, after PhD sort of proper job as a scientist, I went to the UK, to Wales actually, and spent, I think, wonderful 6 years there. One of my children was born in Cardiff, and so that's my second home, if you want. But now I'm back in Germany, so I sort of moved back and forth quite a bit.
Well, that's fantastic. So, you've kind of gone back and forth between two countries. Where does water polo fit into your life, and where did that begin?
Oh, it begins very young, actually. In kindergarten, I have this memory of people coming in saying, we're going to teach you swimming. And at first I was like, I'm not sure, they look a bit scary, but it started anyways. And this turned into water polo pretty early, primary school, that kind of age.
Wow.
I played locally through all junior levels and then senior a little bit. But I think at the age of sort of 15 or 16, I wanted to do a bit more and did my coaching license, coach juniors. But since I was at the pool anyways, all day, more or less, referees were needed too.
Okay.
So for a while, I did all three things: playing, coaching, refereeing, but all sort of at the local, maximally sort of regional level in Germany.
Uh-huh.
And as I said, when I then went away for military service and then started studying physics, that needed a lot of my time and attention. It was a bit overwhelmed. Right. So refereeing really was the only thing that survived long term. Yeah, it went. I mean, for quite some time, I had to focus on my studies. I did a bit of local refereeing, but then when I was sure enough, I would get the degree I wanted. I intensified it a bit more. I had, of course, people who supported me, and then I had this sort of dual career that I was trying to develop, both water polo refereeing and my academic sort of physics life. And that worked well. I moved to Berlin, where lots of things are happening, including water polo.
Yeah.
It helped a lot to make it from the local and regional level to German-wide level, and lots of opportunities were given to me there. And then I moved to the UK and got a completely different sort of environment. And that was great because, you have to stay flexible as a referee.
So were you reffing in Len at the time before you moved while you were in Berlin, or did you not really get into those ranks until after that?
It was quite remarkable that it was coincided with my transition. So I moved from Germany, out of Germany to the UK. And nevertheless, the Thorsten Bock and the people in charge in Germany at the time, they decided, we'll give Frank the chance. So I did my Len school while I was sort of half in Germany, half in the UK, and then started Len refereeing while I was in the UK, which was quite special.
Good old Bocky. He can always wrangle you in,
No, absolutely. No, I was very, very fortunate. I even refereed with him a little bit in my early years. And
yes.
He was a supporter of my career.
Yes. An amazing man and has influenced my life as well. So that's fantastic. So take us through the transition. You leave Berlin. Now you're in the UK. I take it you're whistling in the British League or something of that nature. And what does that look like for you?
It was interesting. For a while, my partner, my wife stayed in Berlin. I was sort of alone in Cardiff. And I wanted to stay in touch with water polo, but also, meet friends in the UK that are not just physicists. because, physicists are lovely, but also special kind of people. And there was some contact between international referees from Germany and from England. And again, I think it was Thorsten Bock who sort of said, look, there's Frank, why don't you, take it on? And then I got invited to the British Water Polo League for a weekend, and I loved it, and I didn't screw up terribly, I guess. So they kept inviting me, and it was brilliant because I was immediately part of this water polo community, which was different from what I knew in Germany, but in some sense also was very similar. If that makes sense, because we were all at water polo, and the sport is the same. In Germany, it's very much home and away. You travel to a game. Sometimes traveling can take hours and hours. Then you arrive. It's all very sort of professional. There's not much talking. You referee the game. You go home.
Right.
In the UK, it's a lot more. An entire weekend, lots of referees meet. All the teams of Division 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. They come, and multiple games a day, and you go out in the evening and chat about the games. So it's the social aspect is a bit bigger if we want, and
okay.
I really enjoyed that exchanges with different people, different perspectives.
Were you kind of like share? I mean, was it special to you? Because I mean, I think, here in San Diego, where I live in the United States, that's one of the most difficult parts, is to kind of share stories with your colleagues, because like you said, we referee one game and then you don't see anybody for a really long time. And that sense of camaraderie that you talked about would be so unique, to be able to just sit around a table, have a beer, and share stories of, oh, hey, this happened in my game. This is what you could learn from me. Are those things that kind of were different, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, the way it works, everyone arrives at the pool. There's a room for the referees with tea and cookies and stuff. So you hang out at the pool all day. You referee a couple of games. You watch your colleagues' games. Even the table officials are neutral, so you get to know them after a while, because you travel every weekend or every other weekend. So it's the same people you meet over and over again. And you become friends, and you see each other's water polo games, and there's always stuff to talk about. Most of it is about water polo, sometimes about other things. And as you say, this camaraderie is fantastic to develop, to exchange ideas, and and also to stay sort of flexible in your head, which I think is important to the water polo referee.
I have to agree with you. Some of my most memorable conversations were with the British officials that worked the London Olympic Games. I mean, I had, first of all, laughter, outrageous, because I love British comedy, and we had some very unique characters with their stories. But it just was such an invitational environment, and the country itself, but the people made it such an experience, and something I will never forget. So I share your sentiment, even though I didn't officiate there consistently. Just arriving and being part of that environment, I could clearly see how that would be so inviting and wanting to be part of that type of water polo scene. I mean, that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, when I arrived, it was 2012, I want to say. So just after the Olympics. So this Olympic spirit
was still there.
I was very excited. As a new referee, also in land, I was like, oh my God, those people just come fresh from the Olympic experience. It was amazing.
So you go from Len, and you eventually move back, and you're back in Berlin. At what point do you start officiating FINA events and things of that nature?
I was still in the UK at the time. I think I was on the land list for 2 or 3 years. Went to a FINA clinic, passed the test. I mean, then there's always a bit of luck of whether there's an open spot on the your country's list and so on. But it all went pretty smoothly and directly. So I think 2015 or 2016 is when I was also on the FINA side, and again I was very fortunate. Had lots of support from people. I remember the 2016 European Championships in Belgrade. This fantastic indoor temporary pool.
Oh yeah,
that was one of my big first events. But also I got a FINA invitation to, I think it was Kunshan in China the same year. And I really got a taste of, what it means to travel internationally for land and FINA and referee those games, and, see how water polo ticks at those big international events, which obviously is something special.
And those events are kind of unique, because we're literally bringing referees from all around the world to actually accomplish these events. And which is kind of the nucleus of what makes WWR. Now, you are a valued WWR member, and can you kind of explain to us why joining WWR in the nucleus of it and what that might mean to you?
I've thought about this question now, listening to your podcast. I've heard you ask this to others. So I thought about really what WWR means to me. And I came down to, I think it's sort of three aspects that I value most. One is what we also mentioned already, is this sort of feeling of we are a united family. I mean, water polo refereeing, you can be sometimes a little bit lonely. It's you and your colleague on the other side. But by having a society that we all identify as water polo referees that strive to be the best, and we wear the same t-shirts and the same logo and so on, that really means something to me, and it means something to people, and I think we're proud to represent us, the water polo referees. So that's fantastic, just the sort of being a symbol for our community. The second thing is education. I think is brilliant how WWR manages to sort of distribute information among us. And I remember, and I'm sure you remember, in the past, it was like, I have heard person X, Y said this has to be refereed like this, but then I heard this, and this is kind of, I mean, water polo is complex and difficult enough.
Correct.
But I think
Absolutely.
having a direct stream of information, and we all can look now at the same clips, at the same questions, the same source of information, and can discuss. That makes it so much easier to arrive at the same level and be on the same page.
And I think that's an important topic too, because I think that's what we struggle with as referees is being consistent amongst ourselves. That's actually was a great topic that came up on a previous podcast, but WWR provides that avenue to be able to spread the message amongst the masses in a short amount of time.
That's right. And it's this mixture of, there is information that you can access online, you can test yourself, but also, chatting with your WWR friends at tournaments, but even, away from tournaments via whatever WhatsApp and whatever communication channels we use. This is brilliant and helps so much. And I think it's really necessary to grow as a referee.
Yeah.
I want to finish the third thing about WWR, which I think is fantastic, is that we have this representation now. People recognize the referees, are represented by WWR, and our president Boris Margetta gets invited to big workshops and so on, and represents us. Sometimes other people do this, and I think this is an important aspect too, to have this voice, and to have ways of formulating opinions that then get heard at higher levels, and making life better for us, but also for the entire water polo community.
And I think that's such a critical part. I believe that referees are truly ambassadors of the sport, because until you could convince the referees to change a philosophy, to change the way they call a particular game, whether it be a specific instance or the game as a whole, the game's not going to change. And I think Boris has been such a critical part to be involved in these conversations. And so if there's a discussion of a rule change or philosophy or the way the game needs to be portrayed to the public, they are taking the input from the referees to make sure that, yes, this is the way that we want the rule written, because the referees can whistle it this way. And I think that's such a valuable part that the WWR has brought to the table.
Yeah. And I think it's fantastic that everyone has access to this. It's not just the referees who go to the World Championships or whatever. It's the local referees, if they want as well. They can be part of the conversation. They can tell me, I can tell my friends. It somehow arrives at the top, of course, after a bit of deliberation, but that's exactly how it's supposed to happen. And I think this sort of, I don't know how to call it, this democratic structure and this information flow is very important, very useful for all of us.
And it's fun because in my local area, I mean, not everybody's a member of WWR, but they have access to the information that's out there, whether it be on social or YouTube. And these are topics of discussion at our local meetings. Hey, I heard this referee say this, or I watched a clip from WWR, and can you kind of explain it more? And I think those are such critical things about our sport, that we just have these open dialogue discussions to refine our craft and make us all better.
Yeah, and it's not just among referees, like sometimes players, coaches look at our stuff. And we start a conversation over that, which can only help.
Well, what's on the horizon for Frank at this time? Like, I'm sure you have officiated events this year. I already know that. And what's your ambitions and where you see the game going and things of that nature that you can kind of give us some insights on that maybe we can keep an eye out so that we can watch Frank on the deck.
Well, first, you asked me about the future, but I want to talk just a few seconds about the past. I mean, the past few years have been absolutely incredible for me.
Yes.
You know, I went to my first Olympic Games in Tokyo. Was different than other Olympics, as we all understand, but still, it was incredible. The World Championships in Budapest this year, the European Championships split, all of them were fantastic experiences for me. And you know, I mean, so in some sense, I would be lucky just to continue that path. Champions League is coming up now in Europe, which is always a big competition. It's a great honor to referee there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, to be honest, for me personally, it's most important to be consistent and get appointed to many games. And each game, I want to show that I can referee those games. And
so how do you do that? Explain to it in words, because you have been very consistent. And I think that's what I respect about you so much is it's hard to go from tournament to tournament with team. I mean, some of these teams you've never seen before. Now, some of the European teams, maybe you see them more regularly, but you don't get to see the U.S. team on a regular basis. Explain to a referee and members of our group and our podcast that are watching, how does a referee do that in your eyes?
Well, I think reviewing yourself is a key part of that. I mean, when I go and referee games and tournaments in particular, there's always things that I'm happy about, which I think is important. You know, you want to build up confidence. And there are always things that I learn and I think I have to do better. And, I'm a scientist by training, so it's easy for me to sort of have a rational view on this.
Yeah.
To say, look, this is completely, I think referees have to be fair to the teams, but also to yourself. That means, we have to accept that we do mistakes and understand them as a challenge. So really, I try to look at my games, I review them on video, and I try to find things that were not optimal, and I try to understand what happened. Was I positioned wrong way? Did I not anticipate properly what the players were doing? That often comes down to I haven't seen the teams often enough.
Right.
Maybe I should, So there's a bit of when I go to a big tournament and I haven't seen those teams. Sometimes I just look online, but I find recent games.
Okay.
I don't try to watch all of it in detail, but just to get a sense of who are the important players,
right.
What kind of standard tactics, and it's so that I can build up. I don't want to be surprised in a game,
So you have your own vision per se of what it's going to look like.
Exactly. What are the expectations? What do I have to prepare for? And that helps me to calm down, And if I have the feeling I'm well prepared, I know in principle what could come, and I have ideas of how to react. That helps a lot to sort of go in a game relaxed and looking forward to it.
And I think referees don't do that enough, actually. I think it's very valuable information that you provide, because I don't think referees do that enough. I know that, if I'm going to a big game and I haven't seen teams or tactics that they play, I do everything I can to find whatever resources. And then I'm always visually playing it in my head on my way there of what I think it's going to look like.
That's right.
To prepare yourself, reaction times, things of this nature. And I think that's such a critical tool you just provided. That was great. So now we go into the future. So we talked about the past. What's the future of Frank?
Well, I mean, as I said, I'm very excited to see the Champions League coming up this year. I also went to the first Champions League Final 8 earlier this year, so I want to repeat that.
That's right.
The Olympic Games in Paris, I think this would be a dream to be allowed to go for a second time.
And explain. Now, give me some. I could explain it from my perspective, but I would love from your perspective what really kind of showing up at an Olympic Games and kind of explain to the audience how that's a little bit different. World Championships is one tournament. Champions League is one tournament, but they're all unique in their own way. Just give us some insights, because you just came off a fantastic tournament and obviously very memorable to you. Just give me a snapshot of why that is a little bit different and probably processes a little bit different for you as a referee?
I think it starts. Let's start with the way to the pool. You got on the bus that has the Olympic logos on it. You drive through a city that says Olympic Games everywhere. You drive past the tennis courts, the hockey fields, all other sports, and immediately I'm in this. I realize this is a big thing. The entire world is watching.
Yeah.
My family and friends are watching. And then I enter the pool and I realized, the largest group of people, it's not the athletes there, it's not the referees. First of all, it's the volunteers.
Right.
I mean, Tokyo was very obvious. At every corner, there was a wonderful volunteer pointing us the way. The second largest group in my perception, again, not the athletes, not the referees, it was the Olympic Broadcasting Service. There's so many cameras, such a professional level. And again, even without spectators, which of course was unfortunate in Tokyo, you realize, this is as big as it gets, this stage. And it's great because on the one hand, it gives me the chill and I'm like, oh my God, I can't make a mistake. If people are watching one water polo game in their life, it could be this. It's an Olympic game.
Yeah, don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. On the other hand, it's sort of, it's such an honor and such a privilege to be there, and I'm just so happy, and I keep telling myself, I mean, there's a reason why we're all here. So let's just do it. Let's just do our job. We've done it several times, and you referee your first period in the first game, and you realize, despite all your Olympic logos and 100 cameras, it's still water polo they play.
Polo, right? Yeah,
that's right, and they still follow my whistle. And this is just absolutely amazing to be able to walk up and down the catwalk and officiate those games.
Yeah, the Olympic Games is something very unique, and it's something I'll never forget either. Any advice that you would give to a young referee for whatever country that they come from, of how to kind of come and build up to an elite level referee like you're at now, where you're reffing international events? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think there are a few qualities everyone has to bring. I think people have to be humble and patient, and at the same time extremely enthusiastic about the sport. And if you've got that, my experience, people will see that eventually. And I don't think anyone can do this alone. So you need to find people who see your enthusiasm and support you, and then just listen and learn. And as I said earlier, don't beat yourself up if you make mistakes. That's part of the game. Everyone makes mistakes. And just don't. I mean, it's what I find difficult in the past. What I found difficult to navigate is it's this conundrum of you have to be flexible. You have to adapt to what people tell you. Don't whistle so quickly, don't whistle too late, do this and this. But at the same time, you have to build up confidence to be like, no, I'm the referee here. I officiate that game. I tell you what the interpretation of the rules is in the next 60 minutes. Follow me. And I think finding this balance takes some time.
Yeah.
And people, should realize that it takes some time, but it will come eventually by officiating many games, talking to people, taking in advice, and be ready for the opportunities that present themselves, because they will come eventually. And if you're there at the right moment and you do a good job because you've reviewed yourself, then cool things can happen.
That's such a token of advice that you just hit on, and for everyone to find their own identity, and it takes time. It comes over years. This doesn't happen in a few games at all, but I think that is so crucial. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that's just something that somebody can tuck in their back pocket and take with them for a while on that one.
Thank you.
Frank, I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and spending some time with WWR and sharing kind of some insights of your life and the all the great things that you've accomplished. And I wish you personally all the best and everything, not only for your family, but also in your referee career.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Same goes for you and for this podcast. I really look forward to listening, to more my colleagues and see what they've got to say.
Absolutely.
Great to share experience that way.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.